The performance and construction of a furry identity is played out no more frequently than in the development and deployment of one's fursona. A portmanteau of the terms furry and persona, a fursona invents an anthropomorphic avatar that can be decidedly displayed in a number of different social or metaphysical positions. Though we might find anthropomorphic characters in any media or text, a fursona in most respects originates from or exists within the furry fandom. Fursonas, in much the same way as furries, escape conventional definition. At best, we can dilute their existence to a universal trait of an animal-like avatar, although as we'll soon see, this isn't exactly ideal. To what extent a fursona resembles an animal or a progressively anthropomorphized character, or to the number of animal species influencing their design, has little to no restrictions. Though they may be designed or created by another, they are almost always allocated to an individual person, who may or may not choose to adapt or alter their fursona to match their personal desires. Beyond these generally agreed upon aspects, consensus of what having a fursona entails quickly breaks down. Research into the nature of one's fursona and any functions it fulfills was conducted in 2021 by the International Anthropomorphic Research Project. Among the about 1,700 polled, a consensual theme was not discovered above 49.4% of the population, with a large portion of these responses falling into a multifaceted array of functions. To this 49.4%, a fursona is the manifestation of self, symbolizing realism over idealism, a character that's not better than me, but is easier to be than me. They are, at the most simplest extent, the person without a human form. To others, they value function, using a fursona as an avatar to talk with people and allow some form of anonymity. These anonymous functions serve a practical purpose. Aside from being a method of socializing within the fandom, anonymity allows expression outside of external judgment, a benefit that is shared among all fursonas, although highlighted by this 21.7% of respondents. Alternatively, 21.2% of the population considers fursonas a more tangible way to interact with the aspects of myself that I like and want to cultivate more in my daily life. These envisions often portray idealist functions, a dreamed version of the self. In essence, a fursona resembles a highly individualized and self-governed avatar to act primarily as a representation of self, an online avatar, a projection of idealisms, or any combination of these or more factors. From here we may ask, how does the development of one's fursona reinforce, alter, or shape different dimensions of identity? How is the purpose of one's fursona viewed? And what impact or influence do fursonas have on the lives of furries? I argue that fursonas provide a significant opportunity to exercise self-reflexivity, particularly in the realms of gender and identity resolution, with each dimension of a fursona's nature collaborating to achieve this ability. Irving Goffman's mask links the anonymous avatar to the freedom of expression, and the face of this expression acts towards identity resolution. A central piece of Goffman's The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life is the concept of the front stage and the backstage. To Goffman, acting in the front stage means performing a role in the presence of others. The expectations and norms of the audience establish the conventions of our performance. Failing to do so means losing face, where the social self is damaged or lost. As such, the backstage identities appear much different than those openly projected, being less restricted by the audience's norms. Using Goffman's theory, fursonas can facilitate a sort of backstage identity, whereby the lack of visual cues offers a space for unsupervised freedom. Furthermore, the fursona resembles Goffman's concept of a mask, or the presentation of few characteristics while submerging others. In this instance, a mask which shields the true identity, being able to emphasize or minimize certain parts of the self, both physical, behavioral, or even emotional. This has implications on surveillance theory, although in some more delicate forms. French philosopher Michel Foucault identified that consequences of modernity have sheltered facilitation for a newly developed form of social control, providing institutions governance on the social order of its subjects, conceptualizing a panopticon that elicits an illusionary fear of surveillance, causing people to act in accordance or obey the norms of society. Deleuze expanded this focus towards the pervasive attitude of surveillance across modern society. Rather than visible confinement, society was occupied with controlled observation and the manipulation of behavior. Surveillance, despite not being referred to as universal, exists within the embedded framework of contemporary society. However, whilst one might consider the furry identity as liberating from surveillance, a fursona or furry image is most frequently an expression of self. To obscure identity, one would have to be exploring their furry identity as an actor, not for self-expression. This is important to mention, as Foucault's analysis has been largely used to study deviance, and escaping the panopticon often involves concealment of some deviance. Yet, we should not try to imply that furry is hiding deviance, or perpetuate these sorts of harmful stereotypes. Rather, the liberation of vigilance comes from the newly explored identity that is both truer and separate from the ulterior, removing certain consequences and promoting healthier expression. The furry is still being seen, although their perception is that of the fursona, not the individual. The anonymity of the mask works alongside unconventional identity norms to create an ideal space for gender expression and sexuality. Fursona identity disentangles the binary between human and animal, creating a post-human mindset that challenges the conceptual notions of what modern society considers human. After all, how could we express a non-binary identity in a world that only recognizes male and female expressions? The answer may be to deny humanity as it has been constructed. If these are your humans, world, then I'm a dog. Although, if these are our humans, we may not distance ourselves from their reality, but displace humans as the object of desire. The fursona is eliminating aspects of the human body in order to enact an identity which reformulates the human figure without losing reference to reality, granting opportunity to express human sexuality and transgressive gender norms with the aid of a post-human identity. A series of quotes from IARP surveying revealed this benefit. My fursona allows me to freely express myself and my gender identity without fear of being outed or misgendered. It allows me to feel comfortable with my body and presentation, a way to express myself and my transness, since deer have visible traits, antlers, to help denote my transition. Rather tellingly, transgender furries score higher on fursona identification than cisgender furries, a difference of 0.6 on a 7-point Likert scale. This suggests that whilst fursonas are an important facet in any furry's identity, it has particular significance to the expression or validation of gender identity for transgender furries. For evidence on how these variables affect fandom populations, a 2021 to 2022 study on gender identity found that upwards of 1/4 to 1/3 of furries do not identify as cisgender. This demonstrates extreme importance to the experience, thought, and belongingness of transgender furries within the fandom. As one furry states when asked, "How frequently do thoughts about one's gender arise?" they responded, "All of the time. The furry fandom is a queer space and I'm forever grateful to it for that. I've never felt more love and support about my gender identity than within this community." Or in another statement, a furry emphasizes the fandom's participation in facilitating gender expression. "I am always thinking about it because the fandom encourages discovery in my own experiences." Notably, negative-related gender thoughts existed in 22.9% of transgender participants, although existing in the minority in comparison to the 18.9% of neutral-related or 58.2% of positive-related thoughts. These experiences should not be ignored, nor should the fandom be treated as entirely a gender utopia. Fursonas can also allow for a practice known as identity tourism, whereby an individual may choose to create a persona with the purpose of exploring a different facet of their identity, gender, body proportions, etc. During this transition, the individual can confirm, challenge, or transform one's self-perceptual understanding of identity. In many instances, this change in roles may accompany a shift in performance. Returning to Goffman's theatrical metaphors, this is the equivalent of adapting to the personality of a newly taken role. Instances of identity tourism may be beneficial, such as the before-described self-reflexivity, or destructive by submerging a marginalized trait or ill-treated aspects of one's identity to fit in. Goffman may view these latter actors as cynical performers, whose audience will not allow them to be sincere. According to Baker 2009, individuals may exist in a dialectical relationship, where the front-stage identity informs the backstage persona, which reaffirms or readapts the front-stage identity again. This is very similar to one's effect of identity tourism, and can be viewed in more recent furry-specific research. In 2023, representing the IARP, author Sharon E. Roberts developed the Furry Fandom Identity Resolution Model, based on the reflections of furry assistance in identity resolution. The model indicates that under the right condition, fandom members develop a furry identity, gain furry capital, and benefit from non-furry identities to facilitate the emergence of a robust sense of self, or as termed, the intrasona. Furry capital under this model refers to the individual, group, and societal level benefits and skills that arise from engagement in the furry fandom, not in specific to monetary capital, but skills, well-being, relationships, anything tangible derived from fandom origin. Benefits that are often transferable to non-fandom contexts, aiding in navigating school, work, relationships, or foraging non-furry identities. Robert's description of the intrasona involves the coexistence of selves, where the fursona, or essence, and the persona are intrinsically linked and validated. An individual may imbue or inherit facets of self-identity from their fursona construct. As one encounters a difficulty in their life, a questioning gender, sexual orientation, or desire to solve a problem, they may adapt their fursona as their needs become more apparent. The intrasona exists as a representation of infused identity developed after a process of fursona connection. Through repetitive experiences of increasing validation and comfort of oneself, the gap between idealized fursona and their own sense of being begins to close, emerging as a robust intrasona and a fully realized identity. E. Torrey Higgins' 1987 self-discrepancy theory provides a useful model to visualize the achievement of one's intrasona. This model proposes that emotional discomfort is formed from significant discrepancies between the ideal, the ought, and the actual self, resulting in a motivation to shorten the distance between self-concepts. To the extent in which furries idealize their fursona, the IARP conducted an assessment on the perceived similarity between characteristics of an individual self and their fursona. The results found that furries envisioned more positive attributes in their fursona over negative attributes. Characteristics of attractive, confident, and energetic over characteristics of shy, introverted, and disorganized. The fursona, particularly as it is idealized, is removed from the negatives of the self and enhanced in its positives. To the nature of one's fursona, survey respondents readily reference ongoing pursuits to match these idealized projections, behaviorally, characteristically, emotionally, or otherwise. It's another imaginary self that is typically a slightly better me. Though I'm not particularly eager to make this fursona magical and powerful, I prefer to be as close as myself. This fursona has my future dream job to be a professor. Intellectual, scholarly, knowledgeable, yet also funny, cute, and flamboyant. It has become my life goal in some way. What I want to be. strong and confident. Such idealized expression for the purpose of identity resolution is present in the context of gender, where a number of transgender furries report the utility of their fursonas for the exploration of gender identity. It's nice because I can use my fursona to represent what I want to be and how I want to look. When I was first exploring my gender, I used my fursona to do so. I take that as a positive, as it did help a lot. Purpose and expression of fursonas in their natural context provide a rich vignette into the backstage experiences of one's life. Though their utility and meaning extend outside of this video and into the wider spiritual, cultural, and psychological paradigms, how the fursona has come to mean a symbol of authentic identity is a uniquely beautiful thing. Identity is a complex question, though its idea is not one discouraged by the furry fandom. The impact and influence of fursonas is asked by a self-reflexive question. If you were to make yourself, what would you design? Before we end this video, a massive appreciation to those who have supported me through Patreon and YouTube memberships. A special thank you to our highest tier Patreons Zephyr and Moog Sentry for your generous support. And an extended thank you to both our Super Seals and Seal tier Patreons as well. To have your name in the credits and get to see uploads a week early, there is a link in the description alongside all my other social medias. This is not a compulsory action, please take care of yourself before any YouTuber tells you to, but for now, I'll see you losers in the next video, peace.